presentation for today, which is ITM Power. It's been presented by CEO Dr Graham Cooley. He joined ITM as CEO in 2009. ITM Power was the first hydrogen-related company to be listed on the London stock market and has been developing electrolyser technology and equipment for over 20 years. So with that, I'd like to welcome Graham, thank him very much for his attendance today, and I shall pass it over to him for his presentation. Thank you.
And hello to all of the attendees today. Delighted to be here and be able to talk to you about electrolysis equipment and green hydrogen production. If I can start with the high-risk technology step, I'd like to share my screen with you. All right then, so look, I'm going to talk to you about the role of electrolysers in green hydrogen and particularly in global decarbonisation. Touch on policy and demand and where we are today. So just first of all about ITM Power. I'm only going to show one slide on ITM Power. This is more about the macro picture than it is about our company. But at ITM Power, at the beginning of 2021, we moved into the world's largest operational electrolyser factory with a capacity of 1 gigawatt per annum. We raised enough money to get to 5 gigawatts per annum by the end of 2024. We actually raised 250 million on the London stock market and were very significantly oversubscribed. Currently, we have 400 staff working out of Sheffield, and we have a backlog of 755 megawatts of projects. Indeed, the company is very well positioned in the UK. We are very well positioned in the UK. In fact, the UK's government's hydrogen strategy was announced at our factory by Kwasi Kwarteng, who knows the company very well. And actually, he's just about to be appointed as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So all the way to the top of UK government, there is support for a green hydrogen strategy. Let me just paint the macro picture for you. We are in the fourth industrial revolution. So the first industrial revolution was about coal, the second one about oil, the third one, which is playing out, and I would say is in its end game, is gas. And we are moving into the fourth industrial revolution, which is about net zero. It's about achieving net zero by 2050. It's unique in industrial revolutions because it has a defined endpoint and a date. We need to do it by 2050. And it's an existential journey rather than the others being a purely business and opportunistic one. And we need to achieve net zero, and the world will be deploying trillions of pounds worth of capital equipment. We need to produce not only net zero electrons, but also net zero molecules. Let me talk about the energy transition and electrons and molecules. What you do with an electrolyser is you turn electrons into molecules. You take electricity, you split water, and you make a molecule called hydrogen. That's a replacement for fossil fuels. You also, in doing so, what you do is you turn an electron into a storable product. That's a molecule. Actually, energy storage throughout history has always been at the level of the molecules. So in the old days, we mined fossil fuels, we burned them, we created CO2, and we generated electricity. In a new net zero scenario, what you do is you make net zero electrons from renewable power, use an electrolyser, and you make net zero molecules from the net zero electrons. So in other words, you go in the other direction. Then that green hydrogen can produce methanol, which is the building block of the whole of chemistry. It can produce ammonia, which is the building block for fertilizer and food. But the key device is the electrolyser. And we are going to need very, very large amount of electrolysis equipment. You also, using electrolysis, you get two other things. You get energy storage for renewable power, and you're able to replace natural gas, which is an incredibly geopolitical commodity. Hydrogen strategy is a new thing. Over the last 5 years, there have been a number. First one was in Japan, 2017. Breakthrough in the UK was to put the Climate Act into law, that was 2019, and then a whole variety of electrolyser targets generated as we progressed through our understanding of how you get to net zero. 2021, the IEA report predicted that the world will need 3,500 gigawatts of electrolysis to get to net zero by 2050. So to put that in context, we're in the world's largest electrolyser factory with a capacity of 1 gigawatt per annum. We would need to run that factory at full capacity for 35 centuries to make that amount of equipment, and we will need it all in the next 28 years. I think an industry that is going to see very, very significant growth. At end of 21, the global targets for electrolysis were 149 gigawatts. That's a Bank of America number. And then we had the weaponization of fossil fuels across Europe with the Ukrainian crisis. And in 2022, actually in March, the EU announced Repower EU and is now calling for 200 gigawatts of electrolysis by 2030. And the UK government, 5 gigawatts of electrolysis in the next 8 years, and also 10 gigawatts of total clean hydrogen. Why is this happening? Okay, so this is a graph of the price of natural gas. This is the spot market price for natural gas in the UK. And it's a 5-year chart. Natural gas stabilized in the UK. You can see the line that bubbles along the bottom. That's the 5-year chart. And in fact, if you go out to 25 years, you can see an average price of between 30 and 40 pence a therm. And we hit a historic high last week of 640 pence a therm. Okay, consequence of that then is that you're now looking at green hydrogen made using electrolysis, and by the way, using a whole lot of platinum group metals, that now has parity with industrial hydrogen. That's grey hydrogen. That's all the hydrogen made using natural gas. So you should, when you look at that graph, you look at two things. You look at a massive increase in price. You look at volatility as well as price increase. And you look at what the prediction of all the main banks saying it will stabilize, it will begin to normalize, but not for many years, and it will never go back to where it was before. So what do we have now? We have green hydrogen with cost parity, not only with blue hydrogen, but actually with carbonizing industrial grey hydrogen. That cost parity comes with a minimal cost volatility, which is also very important for planning. If you connect an electrolyser directly to renewable power with a power purchase agreement, you get a zero volatility price for the lifetime of the power purchase agreement. It also gives you fuel security because you're making your own hydrogen, replacing natural gas, which in turn makes industrial grey hydrogen, mainly for the production of ammonia and for fuels. So what's the market? Actually, around the world, 70 million tons of grey hydrogen is sold. This is equivalent to 600 gigawatts of electrolysis. Okay, so a huge market, and it is an existing market. Nobody has to drive a hydrogen car or a hydrogen bus or put any hydrogen into the gas grid. And I believe both of those things will happen anyway. The existing market is 70 million tonnes per year. You avoid the geopolitics of fossil fuels, and you also avoid paying a carbon price. And that is not included in the numbers I've shown you. And the ETS is between about 60 and 100 euros per metric tonne CO2. But now, if you look at the prices, if you're about 200 pence a therm, you're talking about industrial hydrogen at $4 a kilogram, not including the carbon price. And if you go up to around 500 pence a therm, and we've been way above that, we're talking about $10 a kilogram, not including the carbon price. This is the reason that ammonia plants all over Europe are closing down or being part loaded. Okay, consequence of that is that farmers are not going to plant because they cannot afford fertilizer. An astonishing situation. So we're very proud to be involved in one of the first major ammonia projects with Yara and Linde Engineering, our partner. Actually, 30% of all that industrial hydrogen is supplied by Linde. We have a collaboration with Linde Engineering. They're our EPC partner. They're also a strategic shareholder in ITM. And we have a joint venture with them called ITM Linde Electrolysers. Ammonia is a very, very important commodity because it is the one that leads to the world's fertilizers. Increase in natural gas means an increase in the cost of ammonia, which is an increase in the cost of not only fuel, but fertilizer, which leads you to not only an energy crisis, but a food crisis. This is called the triple F crisis. What is Repower EU? So Repower EU is about planting up with more and more renewable power and then using green hydrogen as long duration energy storage and a replacement for natural gas that is alleviating the EU's dependence on natural gas coming from Russia. You will know that on Sunday it was announced that Nord Stream 1 is now closed down for maintenance, inverted commas, and that it is closed for the foreseeable future. You'll also probably know that there have been pressure swing tests to look at how pipes across the Ukraine might be undermined as we go into the winter. So we have the genuine weaponization of fossil fuels, and ironically, the proposition of green hydrogen is being led by that weaponization and by fuel security more than it is actually by net zero. But of course, you also get net zero and long duration energy storage. And it's about planting up and combining two industries, renewable power and the associated amount of green hydrogen. And they're looking for 20 million metric tons per annum by 2030, which is equivalent at a load factor of 60% to 200 gigawatts of installed capacity in the next 8 years. So the delegated acts were announced on the 20th of May to accelerate the early deployment of green hydrogen across Europe. Temporal correlation has been suspended. The fit with the Renewable Energy Directive, temporal correlation and suspension and grandfathering are going into a legal act by 2020. It means that the nation states then will act upon that legal legislation. And in fact, very interestingly, a couple of months ago, we had the approval of the EU of HITEC, which is the first of 8 important projects of common interest. which have a huge amount of funding, and they waive the need. They waive state aid rules so that these projects can be accelerated and green hydrogen can be accelerated. So in the UK, we've adopted a low carbon standard. Low carbon is about allowing grid connected electrolysis, off grid electrolysis, and the target has been set at 20 grams per CO2 equivalent per megajoule. That's using the lower heating value of hydrogen, which means that if you want to do blue hydrogen in the UK, you need to achieve more than 85% capture. You need to be 99.9% pure, and you need to generate at 30 bar. And that's the criteria to be designated as a low carbon hydrogen and be able to apply for incentives. UK government now is the first to roll out a hydrogen business model. Delighted to say we did that in the UK. I was part of the Hydrogen Advisory Council, reporting directly to the Secretary of State in Bays. The first call is for 250 megawatts of electrolysis. The second, and that's already out, and the deadline is 7th of September. Second round is 750 megawatts. CFDs for green hydrogen at the end of this year will amount to 1 gigawatt, showing the determination of the UK government to meet its target of 5 gigawatts over the period of time. You have to bid a project which is a minimum size of 5 megawatts. Cumulative will be a gigawatt by the end of this year. There is no stated pound value per kilogram for the CFDs. It is done by project application. Also, in the UK, we went through consultation. The RTFO, the Renewable Transport Fuels Obligation, now been published, is actually for all renewable fuels of non-biological origin. So it's not only for hydrogen, it's for hydrogen that you use then to derive renewable methanol or renewable ammonia as an e-fuel, marine and also sustainable aviation fuel. A very important document in the UK. You need to meet certain criteria, which I won't go into now, but the incentives are strong if you can meet the low emissions standard for hydrogen. So I think not only progress in the area of industrial hydrogen for ammonia, but also for e-fuels in the UK. So my final slide then, just to summarise, from where I sit, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. And actually, green hydrogen is key to getting to net zero, as is renewable energy. And when you stand back from this, all industrial revolutions are about deploying capital assets, and particularly this one, because renewable power is about buying an asset and then the return on capital employed. You don't buy any fuel, you have a return on capital employed. Renewable power is intermittent. You need long duration energy storage, which is why green hydrogen and electrolysis is fundamental, and electrolysers, the most efficient, lowest cost electrolysers, use platinum group metals. And actually, this is a huge opportunity. Often, politicians look at the energy transition through the lens of decarbonisation, and now they look at it through the lens of a fantastic industrial opportunity and also being able to achieve energy security. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much indeed for the excellent presentation, Graham. It's very much appreciated.